Hello, I'm Joseph Johnson.
And I'm Natalie Daniels.
And welcome to SparkNewZ.
Tonight we're going to be talking about the biggest news happening right now. And one of the biggest news things happening right now is the national emergency with Trump and how he, for his $8 billion wall. And how he thinks this wall is really important to keep out drugs and criminals, even though recently today there's been found out that 16 states have voted against this national emergency.
This national emergency thing has really sparked a debate among many people in Congress and just citizens in general. That it's what is a national emergency?
Right.
Because if you saw the announcement that he was going to proclaim a national emergency to build the wall, he basically said, I'm getting my stats from many people. Many people.
What are these many
people? Exactly, because people are saying from the statistics from Border Patrol are saying that crime has gone down at the U.S.-Mexican border. And so where's he getting the stats? Is this really crucial? And a lot of people think that this is not a national emergency and that it's just a political move for the 2020 election.
And just the use of his rhetoric to say national emergency, I think, is a little weird. I don't know, but
yeah, a lot of people are saying it's weird.
Yes.
So, but in other Trump news, Trump made a speech recently in Miami calling for there to be a new reign of power in Venezuela because the Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has been basically been president during a food shortage and during medicine shortages, fuel shortages, and a lot of people aren't getting food and getting shelter and no electricity and everything. It's been basically turned into chaos.
Definitely.
So the oppositional leader Juan Guaido, he says that he's going to basically become the new president, and he's going to that Maduro needs to make way because he's going to be the new self-proclaimed president of Venezuela.
Right.
And a lot of people are saying, though, that he shouldn't be able to just claim a spot like that.
Exactly.
Essentially that these people need to hold their own elections to have their own president.
Right, and I also know Trump at a rally in Miami yesterday talked about how he's trying to make sure that the military doesn't stop humanitarian aid from getting there because the Maduro military is trying to stop this aid.
Yes.
And I think that's as long as they're getting peaceful humanitarian aid, I think that's the most important part, according to Trump. So talking about a catastrophe in the news, recently on Friday there was a shooting in Henry Pratt's Co. in Aurora, Illinois. The gunman, Gary Martin, went into the company and shot and killed 6 people. And the thing is, he is a convicted felon, but his guns have never been taken away. So it comes across with this discussion of whether or what needs to be done in order to prevent this from happening again.
Yeah, it's a lot of times when you see this stuff happening in news, like mass shootings and all stuff like that, the FBI and CIA actually know about these people for quite some time, and they know that they're a possible threat to people. And when they're making these threats on the internet, you would think that if it's for this long amount of time and they're looking up certain stuff and they're possibly buying this, that they would go to these people's houses to make sure that there is no weapons of mass destruction that can cause mass shootings like this.
Right.
And since he was a felon, they should have made sure in the first place because that's the law.
That's the law.
That's yeah.
So talking about government keeping things under wraps. So Theodore McCarrick, who you can see right there, he's the cardinal, actually Archbishop of Washington, D.C. He has recently been defrocked from the church for sexual abuse. He's actually the highest clergyman and first cardinal to be punished by removal. So a lot of people in the Catholic faith are very hurt by this because these things keep happening and no one's really doing anything about it, but at least he was removed from his position of power.
Yeah, and it's really good to see him being removed, and nowadays we're actually talking about it. Back then, you wouldn't even hear about this. And so the powerful are finally being held accountable, and hopefully if we see any more stuff like this, maybe stuff won't be kept under wraps anymore, that these people could actually be taken away from their positions.
Right, and stop taking advantage of the power they have,
exactly.
especially dealing with sexual abuse.
Exactly,
yes.
exactly. So, from the Catholic Church to capitalism. Amazon's next headquarters will in fact not be in New York. So the New York location was going to offer around like 25,000 more jobs. And a lot of Democratic leaders in New York and a lot of people that live in New York were protesting Amazon coming to their location because they said it would raise rent. It could make traffic, more heavy, and essentially they just didn't want this large corporation in their backyard.
Right.
But on the flip side, a lot of New York Republicans are upset that this wouldn't be taking place here in New York. I mean, not here in New York, we're in Boston.
Right.
But that wouldn't be taking place in New York.
Right.
Because, it would have created a lot of jobs and it would have created like a lot of revenue for the state.
Definitely. But even though it's not going to happen in New York, they're going to expand their offices in Virginia and Nashville. So even though there won't be employment in New York, there will be employment in other states. So at least there is some good out of not being able to put it in New York.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens indeed.
But when we get back from our break, we'll tune in with Jacqueline, where she'll talk about sports, and Elizabeth Perkin on entertainment.
And when I arrive at my destination, I am gonna kill Bill.
What? Oh! Okay, cutting. Sorry, can we get some of this?
Where in God's name is the gaffer's tape?
Hi, I'm Nate.
And I'm Casey, and we're the National Broadcasting Society.
Come out to some of our weekly workshops, or work on some of our sets.
Explore the bigger picture with NBS.
We'll see you there.
All right, let's get another take. Camera, sound.
Hi, host is Speechless, and you're watching the Emerson Channel.
Welcome back. We are now with our sports correspondent, Jacqueline Galvin, and our entertainment correspondent, Elizabeth Perkin. Take it away, Jacqueline.
All right, so first off, we're going to be talking about the NFL and Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid's settlement. So there was finally a settlement that was reached earlier this week, and the terms were not open to the public, but and both parties can't talk about it. But it's kind of estimated that Kaepernick received between $60 million and $80 million for this. But we don't know any of the terms of the settlement, whether or not he can, if he does, get with another NFL team, if he can continue taking a knee in his protest, because that was the reason why they were suing the NFL in the first place. They felt that they were being driven out of the league based on their taking a knee protests against racial inequality and racial injustice in the United States.
Yeah, that's crazy. I remember Trump making comments about how people shouldn't kneel during the national anthem when really it's their First Amendment right, the freedom to protest and the freedom of speech. That's pretty crazy to see.
Happen,
Yeah, and Kaepernick's lawyer does think that he's going to be picked up by another team. He's projecting either the Carolina Panthers, which Eric Reid is actually currently on. He got picked up earlier this season, or the New England Patriots.
Oh,
so
wow.
Personally, I think it'll be interesting if he goes to a team called the Patriots when he's been called anti-patriotic, unpatriotic, so things like that. But kind of moving on to baseball, the MLB's offseason has been huge for free agency. Bryce Harper and Manny Machado are two huge targets for teams this offseason. Bryce Harper still has not signed yet. They felt like he's been holding up the free agent market, him and Manny Machado, but actually, as of today, earlier today, Manny Machado signed with the San Diego Padres.
Whoa, that's
How much did he sign for?
I heard it was like $300 million.
Yeah,
They're just a
That's
lot.
a lot of money.
$300 million over 10 years, which is the biggest free agent signing in the history of any sport. It is definitely going to change the way that baseball looks at free agents, as well as any other sport.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I would love that money. But
Honestly, exactly.
So kind of moving to the collegiate level, Zion Williamson, who is a forward, he's a freshman forward at Duke University. He is projected to go #1 in the NBA draft this year if he declares to go, because he could, spend some more of his time at Duke. He's only a freshman after all, but Yeah, he is projected to declare for the draft, and there's a 95% chance he's going to go number 1.
Wow.
That's
I also
crazy.
heard that like he averages like 22 points a game.
Yep.
Which is
That's-
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his like steals and rebounds are up there too. So it'll be interesting to see, who takes them. Takes him. The Cavs, the Knicks, and the Suns are all projected to have a chance. But someone could trade up for him. So who knows where he ends up? But
Yeah.
he's going to change the dynamic of that team. So we can move
Yeah.
on to entertainment now.
Wow. Well, that's pretty crazy. But in Hollywood right now, we have the 91st Academy Awards coming up this Sunday night. And there's a lot of controversy surrounding them because originally Kevin Hart was supposed to host.
Yeah.
And he actually stepped down due to old homophobic comments like being brought back up again. He decided that it wasn't best for him and the Oscars to work together this year. So that's pretty crazy. But in addition to that, there's been some other changes that the Oscars tried to implement where they originally thought of maybe taking out some categories to shorten the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so some of those include like cinematography, like makeup and hair, some things that they wouldn't,
okay.
they don't
That's
perceive as like quite as
Right.
important, but like to all the people who go on behind the scenes to make these movies and shows happen, that's very important for them. So it's pretty.
And I've heard that they're actually going back to the way it was
Yeah, they
originally. So it was kind of this back and forth thing that they're actually back to where they started.
Yeah, none of it's actually going to happen. So the show is going to remain the same length. It's just going to change up by not having a host this year.
Well, it'll be interesting to see the dynamic about
Right,
what happens without a
definitely.
host.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like a lot of people have been asking for like a shakeup in the Oscars and like, hey, we want something different, we want something new, and this is a chance for the Oscars to do
Definitely.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of actors, we have some news surrounding Jesse Smollett. He was actually attacked last week. He was beaten and he was covered in bleach, and then there was actually a rope tied around his neck. So that's really devastating to hear. And it took them a little while for the Chicago police to find his attackers, but they did find them, and when they brought him in for questioning, it was actually discovered that maybe Smollett had been making up these allegations and like made this all a whole big false claim about like what might be happening with it. And with that being said, it was just like they think that he was making it up because of the fact that he's being kicked off of Empire, the hit show on Fox.
A publicity stunt almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, who can you believe? Which side, you know? Like,
Yeah.
There's evidence pointing to both. So
Yeah,
you
it's
had-
pretty crazy to see like what will happen because no one's been charged or arrested as of now. But there's also been comments being made that maybe the Chicago police are like racist and homophobic, so they're not taking his claims as seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's interesting to see there. But moving on to singers and some happier, lighter news, Miranda Lambert just announced that she got married.
They look so
to
cute.
NY Yeah. She got married to NYPD officer Brandon McLaughlin at the end of January. So I'm so happy for them that she finally found her person.
Definitely, especially after like her split with Blake Shelton and him being with Gwen Stefani. I think it's good that they're both happy and they're
Yeah.
with their partners.
Yeah.
You know.
It's great
But-
to see.
Yeah, that's really good for them, even though I had no idea who they were until yesterday, including Blake Shelton, which is crazy, but who knows? I may know more about Blake Shelton next week, and if I do, you'll see. So we hope to see you next week on Spark News.